Welcome to the ICG's Digital Academy webinar series. I'm Naomi Gubler, responsible for running the ICG's webinar programme. Today's webinar, Trello Get Yourself Super Organised, will be presented by Kennedy, our fellow ICG member and the founder of Greenlight Research. Just for those who aren't members or who aren't familiar with the ICG is a hub of nearly 450 independent market researchers within the UK and abroad. We collaborate and share knowledge and experience for the benefit of members, clients, and advertisers. So if you're a client or agency, you can find your perfect consultant or team of consultants through us. If you're a freelancer or a small business, you can join us. And if you're a supplier, you can advertise with us. This webinar is sponsored by Babel Research, a vibrant and modern facility that's designed to bring research meetings and training sessions alive in the West Midlands. Here is a short video about the service that they offer. I don't think that's going to be working right now, but the video will be, the link to the video will be on the slides that you'll be sent after the webinar. Remember that our webinars qualify for CPD certification, so remember to ask for it if you need one after the session. Please send an email to cpd@theicg.co.uk. You are able to ask any questions by typing them into the chat box that you'll see on your screens. We'll ask you a range of questions midway through and again at the end of the session. If yours isn't answered, please feel free to email us at the admin at the ICG with your question and we'll get it answered afterwards. If you wish to tweet about this webinar, please do so, copying in at the ICG. Two dates for your diary. Our next webinar is on Thursday, the 10th of October at 11 AM. It's about public speaking and details will be announced soon. We also have the ICG AGM and speaker evening on Thursday, the 19th of September. The AGM will be at 6 PM and that will be followed by the ABC of LinkedIn, How to Grow Your Marketing Research Business from 6:30 to 7:30 with drinks and nibbles afterwards. I'm going to hand over now to our speaker for today, Kennedy of Greenlight Research, who will introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm here. Hello. So, yes, this morning's webinar is an introduction to Trello. I hope to give you a very brief overview, introduction, just with its key features. So, yes, let's get started. A few words about me. So as you can see, I've a wealth of experience in research. I actually started as a PA in a research company for one of the directors many years ago. And I kind of fell in love with research at that point, and I've been doing it ever since. But you can see some of the other exciting things that I've done in my life, some of the things that I still do. So I set up Greenlight actually in April 2019. I've been working for a recruitment company or a UX company running their fieldwork department for 3 years, and was made redundant from that at the end of May this year. So I decided to go up, set up on my own, go off into the yonder and see what happened. And I've been really fortunate in that my biggest client has recontacted me, which is brilliant. Several of my other clients have come along. A lot of clients from the government department that I'll touch on later have gone off into other companies, and they've contacted me to do their recruitment from there for their new companies, which is brilliant. I'm actively looking for new business in other fields, so if anyone has anything they'd like to send my way, please feel free. I do mostly B2B, but I'd love to do some B2C. Yeah, so as I say, anything you have, send my way. I'm currently living in Surbiton, just outside London, South London. So, but I'm physically moving to Belfast later this year. So, hello Trello for that, and I'll come on to that a bit later. So here we go. This is what happened. This is how I discovered Trello. So, as I mentioned, working to provide UX recruitment. It was actually for HMRC as the client, so they have a massive UX team. There's a lot of work for anyone that's had the pleasure of using the HMRC website. I'm sure you'll understand the need for user testing to improve their offering and the understanding. So when I started the project, they had a big supplier, a big major name, also supplying, and they fell out. So just weeks into the contract, I discovered that I was now their own supplier. So as it says here, I found myself with 30 projects, which was a lot of projects, all running at the same time. And all of those things I've listed there, you know, everything that needed to be done for every project. That's a lot to manage. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. So I'd used Evernote before, but it wasn't flexible enough. I couldn't actually get everything up on the screen. So if anyone has used Evernote, you can see it's like virtual post-it notes, but they appear in a list view. You can't really map them in any way. So that wasn't flexible. I needed to track all the projects. I preferred not to have a million emails going on at the same time. So I needed something. HMRC was already using Trello, but it was completely new to me. Trello was my knight on a white charger coming to my rescue. So Trello, it's a tool that gives an overview of what's being worked on, who's working on it, and where they've got with it. I like this one. It's the Instagram of task management apps. That's a good one. So yeah, that's what Trello is. It's a digital pin board. Before I went on to Trello, I contemplated actually buying a big pin board and sticking it all on my wall and having it looking something like that. But Trello is much better. So there's 4 key components to Trello. I've sent a link previously to a board that I've set up for this. I'm not sure whether you've actually had a chance to look at it as yet. However, you can feel free to have a look at that afterwards. So there are 4 key components. The first one is the actual setting up of boards. So there's no limit to the number of boards that you can have, whether you're using the free version of Trello or a paid one. It's infinite. These are just some of the things that I'm currently using Trello boards for. So 1 board per client. So example, again, with HMRC, all of their projects go on the same board. It's very interactive. And I will be showing you a sample project board a bit later on. I have another one to track leads, quotes, queries, any new projects, setting up all the tasks in setting up the new business. There's quite a lot to be done in that one. As I mentioned, planning an international move. Again, I'll give you a peep into that one a bit later. I sing with a choir, and we have lots of events that go on. So Trello is useful to pull all that together, get all the venue details and performance rights and who's going where and what and who's wearing what, etc. And just generally to collect and collate information. So it's the place to organise pretty much anything that you can think of. So the second key component is cards. Again, there's no limit to how many cards that you can have. It's a virtual post-it note. Effectively, you can write pretty much anything on them. Again, we'll look at some actual cards a bit later on. So you can have a reminder of things, information that needs to be referred to, particularly with, again, with HMRC and with other big government clients where there's lots of people using the board. I put my phone number and my contact details on a card on all the boards so everyone can find it without having to run around to track me down. Cards are infinitely customizable, and it's really easy to drag and drop the cards up and down and across. There's no need to go hunting for scroll bars. You can mouse really, really easily. It's very user-friendly. The designers clearly did a lot of user testing at the beginning. It's very easy to use. The third component are lists. So lists are they're like an overall category. So again, there's no number of lists that you can add. There's no limit to the number of cards that you can add to each list. You can group them by subject. Again, this will become clearer when we actually move into the looking at a live board. You can use the list to keep track of what's going where. You can manage and update the workflow, moving cards around from list to list. So you can have them as complicated as you like, or you can have them really simple, like this 3-step to do. All the cards would go in the to-do list, and then as you move them along, as you actually do work on them, you move them along to active, and then when you're finished, you can move them along to completed, just so you can see what you've done. There is an archive feature on every card, which again I will show you. So a card doesn't delete. It's quite hard to delete a card, so you can always unarchive things so you don't lose anything. As I said, it is really customizable and really flexible. And the final component of the menu, of the basics, is the menu. So it's where you can access all the settings, you can manage the members of your group, you can check your notifications. So if somebody else is working on your board and they leave you a note, it will fly up on your screen, or you get an email. You can edit how you get notified, when you get notified. You can filter the cards on the menu board. We will come back again to how you might do that and what you might like to filter by. You can track all of the activity related to that board. So if you've got 30 cards, you can pop into the menu and it will pull up all of the details of all of the activity on all of the cards. There's a lot in there. I recommend that you check it out. I'm aware that I'm flying through this, so please go ahead and put in your questions, type in your questions, and Naomi will come to that shortly. So the key menu bar functions, there is a home button, as it says here. I won't read the slides. I hate it when people read PowerPoint slides. The home button is really useful. As it says, it is relatively new, and I think it's come as a response to requests from the user. Trello as a company are really, really responsive and really reactive. There is a forum that you can join, and I can send you a link to that afterwards if you were interested. Lots of really expert users who have been using it for years and can answer questions, and I find it can really do amazing things that I never knew it could do. And there is a boards button where you can toggle your list of boards on and off. If you have multiple boards, it's really handy to be able to see a list of them rather than trying to recall what is where and whatever. There is a really powerful search function. So again, for multiple boards, that's useful. You can search for a keyword in a card across all of your boards, and it will find it for you in a flash. I call my projects by names. I give them names. So at the moment we're on colours, and at the moment we're in the blue range. So I could, for example, I could search aqua in the search box, and it will find every board and every card and every list relating to that and display them. You can change the settings, as I alluded to earlier, and personalise the look of the board. So if you want a pink background, that's fine. If you want a photograph, that's fine. You can upload your own photographs as well and use them as a backing. As I mentioned, just on a more personal note, I use Trello to manage my non-work life too. So I am moving. There's a lot to do. There is a Trello app which works on all phones, all platforms. You can also have a desktop app, which means that you don't have to tie up a browser window, which is very handy. So, you know, if the app is on the phone and I think of something in the middle of the night about moving, I can just switch on my phone, add it in, and there it is before it disappears from my brain again. Excuse me. It is possible to connect Trello to the Amazon Echo device. Excuse me. I haven't worked out how to do that. I'm working on that. So when I have worked that out, I will. I'll let you know about that as well. So in theory, you could ask Alexa to add something to your list. So that would make it even simpler. So yeah, all the information portable and shareable. I am sharing the removal with the person that I'm buying from. So I'm going there, he's coming here. So in order to save money, we're using the same removal company, which is quite a decent money saver. There's a lot of expense in moving. So because it's on Trello and he has Trello, we can share information. So we can share things about the number of boxes we anticipate, etc., etc. So we can give the removals company good information. Again, as I said, because the app is on the phone, I'll have everything available. I won't need to worry about having the computer, powering the computer up, providing I don't pack my phone in the packing boxes. So a brief overview of getting set up. Again, this will become clearer when we actually go and visit a live board shortly. So creating a board, adding the lists, adding cards to the lists. And there are various things that you can add to the cards. For example, the lists there. The due dates are very clever in that they change colour according to how long there is left before the date is up. You can add a description, you can add a checklist, which is really handy when you've got lots and lots of tasks to do. You can add attachments, so you could add a briefing document or a questionnaire, a screener. Comments, obviously, by anyone that's working on the card. You can choose to subscribe to a specific card or not. If you subscribe to a card, you'll get a notification as soon as anything is done on it. If you don't subscribe, you'll just be able to see the update when you log into Trello. You can invite members to the card. The link has been shared with you for the practice board, or you can email, invite by an email address. And importantly, you can specify the privacy settings. So there are 3. There is private, team visible, or public. and you can see exactly. I mean, it's fairly sensible and fairly logical. Private is great for personal or sensitive information. Anything that is client specific, nobody else can see it aside from those you invite. Team visible, I've created this board that you've already been shared with, and another board which I'll send you to a link afterwards. So anyone in the team will be able to see that. That's great for collaborating. Public, anyone using Trello, that speaks for itself really. So let's have a pause. Are there any questions so far, Naomi?
So we do have some questions on the board. We've got, can you integrate it with Google Docs if multiple people are working on a document?
Yes, you can. There are various, there's something called power-ups, which I will come on to very shortly. I want to have a look at a live board first, but there are various power-ups that you can add on. And a power-up it's like an additional program that gives more functionality, and there are dozens and dozens of them. For each free Trello board, you can have one power-up, but there are, as I say, there are dozens, and you can pay to have others. They're quite reasonably priced. You can opt in and out. There's no minimum period of time that you can use them for. And I think that Google Docs is one of the ones that you can link it with. Yes.
Okay. And if multiple people are using a board, can you control who can edit what? So can you lock things? We know that you can assign things to people, but can you lock things as well so that they can see it but not edit it?
I would need to check. I would need to check that. That's not something I've had a need to do. If I have a questionnaire that I don't want them to edit, I would just upload it in PDF form.
Okay.
If you write a comment on your if you write a comment on the Trello board, no one else can edit that. That's locked to you, if that makes sense. But I assume the question refers to attachments, so I don't think they can be locked.
I've got obviously been using Trello as well myself. So with regard to this question that came in terms of, I think what they're talking about is in terms of cards. So you're creating a card with a job to do. Can someone else just go and delete that or archive it, and you wouldn't even?
If you subscribe to the card, you'll be flagged. If
Fine.
anyone does anything to the card, it will flag it to you, and it's quite hard. As I said, it's quite hard to delete, and you can unarchive anything that's been archived.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all the current questions. I think probably until everyone gets on, has a more of a look at the. I think there'll be much more questions at the end after the board's been looked at.
Okay, that's grand. And those paws, by the way, that's my cat, Georgia. If anyone's interested, yeah, my 19-year-old cat. Okay, so carrying on. Just a few additional bits of card info before we actually go and look at a live board. So checklists, they're cards within cards, effectively. Again, you'll see one of my mega checklists in a minute. The other thing to say is if you decide that your checklist is getting too big for the card, you can actually convert the checklist into individual cards, which is quite useful. My lists tend to grow and grow, and sometimes they get unmanageable, so you can convert them. And something else that's just occurred to me, which I haven't put in the presentation, is if you have a whole load of information, for example in Excel, and you think, oh, that would be useful to put that in Trello, you can actually convert a list or data from Excel directly into Trello. If anyone is interested in how to do that, let me know afterwards and I'll send you the steps. They're quite straightforward. I just don't have them to hand. It's just occurred to me. So labels, there are labels in Trello. There are colours, so you can just use colours. You can allocate names to the colours. You can filter by colour, which is really handy. Attachments, there's no limit to how many attachments you can add to any one card. So, for example, my clients like to sign off the brief and questionnaire before the projects go live into Field. So I upload them onto the Trello cards. The client can download at the other end, make edits and re-upload them. It keeps everything together rather than searching through endless emails, which I'm not a fan of, and I'm sure you're probably not either. It's really easy. There is an upload function, but you can just drag and drop. So if the file is on your desktop, you just drag it across onto the card into Trello and it uploads instantly. Due dates are also really useful. I mentioned them earlier. So you get a reminder 24 hours ahead. And the badge changes colour. Everything on Trello is really visual. And it makes it so easy to use. So you can see the colours there and how they change. Subscriptions, I mentioned that earlier. If you could you click on the subscribe button on a card, you'll get that notification I mentioned. When anyone does anything, it will tell you. So when you set yourself up in Trello, you will automatically get a Trello ID, which is the ampersand plus the name that Trello gives you. If you don't put in the tag, then they don't get a notification. So it's as I use as a matter of practice, just to tag everyone or call everybody by their tag. So let's have a wander off into Trello. Can everybody, Naomi, can you see the board?
I can indeed. Sorry, I was muted. I can indeed.
Great, thank you very much. So this is a demo board. Lovely photo of the Giant's Causeway. Not that I have Ireland on my mind or anything, but there you go. So this is just a sample that I've set up just so you can see a few of the things that I've talked about in action, as it were. I've sent the link to this to Lucy and Naomi. I'll leave the board up for a while, for a few days, as well as the test board that you can play with. It's a dummy board. There's nothing on here that's real or live, so feel free to play with it as you will. So I'll just take you through just a couple of the functions and the things that I mentioned so you can see. So obviously I've started by creating the board. It's in the ICG webinar group. The privacy is set to team. So if you click on that, you can see the various privacy options. Organisation is greyed out. That's a paid Trello function, so it's not available unless you have a paid version, which I don't, because I really don't need it. To my picture, invitation. You can invite people by their email address, or you can create a link at the bottom and it will come up with a link that you can copy and then send by email, which is probably easier because you don't have to put in a million email addresses. So each of the headings, these are all the lists, various lists. It's really easy to add a list. You just scroll across to the very end, click on add a list, enter your list title, add a list. You can drag them around. So if you decide that you want that after that, you just literally click, drag and drop. It's really straightforward. If you have many boards but you have one that you're going to be working on a lot, this little star button here, that marks it as your favourite. So when you have a list of boards down the side, that will always pop up at the top of the list, so you can find it quickly and easily. Here is the menu that I was speaking about earlier. You've got all your settings. Here is where you create your labels. Really easy, really simple, really straightforward to do. Feel free to play around in there when you get the link. Here are your archived items. So here's a card that I decided it would be better to put in another one. If I decide I really don't want it, I can delete it here. Or if I click on center board, it will restore it from wherever I archived it from. So if I delete, it lasts me. Are you sure you want to do that? So that's fine. All your personal settings. You can email directly to a board. So if you have something you want to add to a card, you can literally email it directly. That's not a function that I use, but obviously you're welcome to check that out if you want to. If you have a board set up with the list headings that work for you, and you wanted to duplicate the list headings for a different board, you can copy. It's really easy. So that's a very brief overview of the menu. Down here is all the actions that I've taken on this board, so you can see everything that I've added. So if someone else was working on the board here, you'd be able to see exactly what they've been doing in there. So when you guys have been playing on here, I'll be able to see what you've done and who's done what. So this here, the little alarm, they have very cute icons. It's all the notifications. So you will get notification by email if you choose it. It's in the settings. You can get a little pop-up that just appears on your screen for 30 seconds. But if you wanted to see other notifications, you click in here and they come up for all your boards. I won't go in there because there's client ones in there. But yeah, you can see all of the notifications. The wheel obviously is where your settings are, and that's the same. You can access that through the menu as well. So let's have a quick look in the list. So as I mentioned, I put my contact details in the first part of every card of every project, every client board, so they can reach me easily. So I won't bore you with the actual process, but this is my first active list. So if I open the card, you can see from the top, obviously, the title. It shows you which list it's in. There are labels set up for this board. So if you click on labels, you can see all the various labels that are available. And I choose to use a word as well as the colour because I'm forgetful. And that's really helpful. Again, it's really easy to do. You edit the pen if you want to click the name, change the name. Very straightforward. You can add a description in here, which is just a brief summary, so you can see it without actually having to open the attachment. The attachment was a Word file that had just been dragged and dropped across. Activity, you can just type in what you need to do here. and that will be set in forever. I can edit that if I change my mind or want to add some more information. You can edit. It will show as edited, but you can edit that. So checklist I'll come on to shortly. Due date, let's add a due date. So this is the 23rd of September, so my due date to deliver the information back is going to be the 19th. It's simple. You can set the reminder, and the default is 1 day before. You can set it to whatever you like and just save, and it will appear here. And as I said, the colour will change as it approaches. So the background colour, at the moment it's grey, will change as the time gets closer. Attachment, you can see all the places where you can attach from. You can attach a link, or as I said, you can just drag and drop, which is by far the easiest. We'll come to power-ups in a bit. There you can copy the card and you can watch the card. Watching is effectively subscribing. So if you're watching the card, then you'll get all those notifications that I mentioned earlier when someone does anything. Here's your archive button. I've hit that many a time by mistake, but you can always go to the menu and unarchive. So that's all really straightforward. So I think that's pretty much the same as everything. That needs a date. So let's add a date. So 25th, it's going to be the 23rd. Save the date. So I'll add the date again. Watch the card. So to be notified. You can see in this one I've added a couple more documents ready for the client to check. I've flagged it so it's in a different setting, so I know that it's moved along. This card already has the date, and this one I wanted to show you the checklist function. Really easy to do. Let's add. You click on. Let's go back a card. You would click on checklist here. It's along the side. So I've added a checklist. You literally add an item, type it in, blah blah blah, and as that is completed, you just tick it off, so you can see what has actually been done. You can hide what's completed to make your list look a bit shorter. Or you can leave it out so you can see exactly what's been done. Here, this is a client action, so I've put it in capital so they can see it. It stands out better, and they just tick that when it's done, and I get notified that that's been ticked, and I now know that that's live. So as it's been signed off, I'm ready to send it out to the recruiter. Off my email goes, and I just move it along. Update the booked it out. Update that. And as it moves through the process, any queries move along to there. When the recruitment is completed, moves along to there, etc., etc. As I said, these are my live settings, how I manage my projects. But that's obviously down to what you need, what works for you. When it's finished, I will change the label to completed, and that's done. And they will stay in this stack until you archive them. They don't disappear. They don't age. They will stay there. So let's put that back there. Change the label back. Change the label back. So live. So as you can see, the labels toggle on and off. You just click on them to add them or take them away. yeah, so I will send you a link to this. Again, as I said, it's all dummy data. Feel free to play around with it and change it and do as you will with it. Let's just go back into PowerPoint. Okay, so we've had a flick around. So a couple of more advanced tips at this point. So if at any place in the board, because I find using the mouse is the most intuitive. But there is a list of keystroke shortcuts if you're more of a keyboard fan. So if you just press the question mark anywhere in the board, literally anywhere, it will bring up a pop-up list of all the keystroke shortcuts, which is handy if you're a keystroke person. Notifications, as I mentioned, we've seen those, the bell icon, the summary of the actions under. The power-ups I touched on as well. You get one free one per board. You can pay for as many as you like. Here is just a screenshot. Down on this side here, you can see all the categories of the different add-ons that you can have. I've just picked on this one. Calendar is the one that I tend to use. If you're using dates on your cards, you can click on calendar view. It will show them all in the appropriate dates, which is really handy. You can sync with Dropbox or Evernote. As I said, I seem to recall Google Docs, but you can check in here and it will show you. Yeah, finally, I've really only scratched the surface. There are several links that are going to be sent to you afterwards. Trello's training is brilliant. There is a massive help database. As I said, there's a live database that you can connect with, sign up to and connect with. And I really recommend that you do and use the search function. It's really powerful. I'm very impressed with it. The boards will stay up for the next couple of days, so go ahead and play. Any questions?
There are a few more questions. So we've got one that's come in, which is there a function for keeping track of costs attributed to each activity?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Sorry, is there a function for keeping track of costs attributed to each activity?
I don't know. It's not something that I use. I imagine that there probably would be. I would recommend going onto the search function on the Trello site and typing that in.
Okay, there's a few more questions here. How does Trello work on a mobile versus a laptop?
Mobile's fine. It's great. I use it on my iPhone all the time. You can't, obviously you don't get the wide view that you get on a laptop, but you can access all the lists and all the cards. It's a fully functional app. It's free. You can get it for iOS and Google, and it works on iPads and tablets as well as a mobile.
Brilliant. And someone's asked, can you subscribe to specific notifications only, or do you have to be notified about all updates?
If you subscribe to a card, you'll get all updates. If you don't subscribe to a card, you won't get any. I don't think there's any way to filter what kind of updates that you get.
And how is subscribe different to follow? Does subscribe only allow you to be notified about certain cards, or?
I would need to check that as well. I need to check that as well. And I tend to just use the one thing. I think the terms are probably interchangeable.
Okay, you think they're one and the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. that is all the questions that we've had in for today. Thank you so much, Catherine, for coming on today and showing us how you use Trello. Really appreciate your time. For everybody that's listening to the webinar, it will be available. There'll be a link that will be sent out so you can have a look over the webinar again. Also, we'll send out a link to the Trello board, which Catherine said will be open. How long for?
Yeah, a few days. Where are we now? Thursday. I'll probably close it off on maybe Tuesday next week.
Okay. If anyone doesn't get the link, please just contact us at admin@theicg.co.uk and we'll make sure we get that out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening to my ramblings.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.